at his career.
Famously portrayed in the tabloids as a turnip and haunted, or is it taunted, by the colour orange following England's World Cup exit at the hands of Holland, Graham Taylor even has a catchphrase: "Do I not like that?" The famous quote from the infamous television documentary. Just some of the first impressions which gloss over Graham Taylor's impressive record at club level prior to taking over as England manager from Bobby Robson in 1990. The son of a sports journalist, Graham Taylor's career as a league player with Grimsby and then Lincoln was ended by a hip injury at the age of 28, so he turned to coaching and took over as manager of Lincoln in 1972. By 1976, the Red Imps were champions of the old 4th Division. When pop superstar Elton John began to bankroll his favourite club Watford and needed a manager, the name suggested most often was Graham Taylor. That was 1977. Elton wasn't disappointed, and Taylor took the Hornets along the yellow brick road from 4th Division to 1st in just 5 years. To cap that, Watford finished runners-up in the 1st Division behind Liverpool in 1983, and the following season not only played in Europe for the first time, but reached the FA Cup final, losing to Everton at Wembley. Inevitably, bigger clubs beckoned, and 10 years after joining Watford, Taylor was lured to Aston Villa, where he lifted them out of Division 2, and within 2 years to 2nd place in Division 1. That's when the FA stepped in to offer the England job, and the fairy tale ride took a downward path. Despite the disappointments as national manager, he bounced back into work, his club record persuading Wolves to offer the challenge of taking them to the Premiership. At the first attempt, they finished 4th and lost to Bolton in the playoff semi-final. This season, with the team in 18th place in November, he bowed to pressure from the fans and resigned, which at least had the consolation of allowing him time to indulge in his passion for cricket by watching England on their South African tour.
5 Live's Nigel Turner reporting. So to Graham Taylor himself. He came into 5 Live earlier on today. First, how does an exiled football manager fill his time?
I'm enjoying myself. I'm doing some of the things that you probably haven't had time to do in the past. Seeing a lot of theatre. I've been out walking in the Yorkshire Dales. I'm a big lover of walking, particularly the Yorkshire Dales. And although it may seem rather strange, this kind of weather, it wasn't snowing when we were there, but it wasn't the best. So I've been able to do all of the kind of things that people always say, look, when I retire, I'll do those things. Well, I don't think I've retired. In fact, I know I haven't. But I'm taking a great opportunity to do some of the things that many people put to one side and say, well, when I finish working, I'll do that then. And as I say, a lot of the theatre seeing much more theatre now than I did previously.
So, what are your plans?
I don't particularly have any plans to say I'm definitely going to do this or I'm definitely going to do that. I'm quite enjoying what I suppose being a freelance at the moment, being independent. Being able to get up in the morning and say, OK, fine, people want me to speak there, I'll go speak there. Perhaps the following day I'm a little bit involved. I don't like publicising, I don't intend to do that now. A little bit involved in some charity works. I always think it's best to keep quiet about those unless people feel that they want the publicity. And so I can do that. And then you may, for simply a day or two, do nothing. When I say do nothing, I'm not saying sit there saying, well, what am I going to do? And by that, do things that please myself.
A little further on down the line, though, do you see your future as being still in football?
I think when I look at it, the reality is that having been the England manager and now having been asked to resign at Wolverhampton Wanderers, I think it would take a very brave Premiership chairman to say, let's offer Graham Taylor a Premiership job, because you carry the baggage with you which people are not prepared to let go. So in that sense, I'm confident enough now that I could do a job, but I face up to reality. I think the experience that I have would say, or would suggest, that if I were to remain in professional football, it would be more on probably an administrative or an overseeing situation. I consider myself a relatively young man, but I started in management very early, and so I still have a number of years, but at the risk of being boastful, I think I've got a lot of experience which I think could be put to good use if either I wish to remain in football or football wishes to have me.
You seem to rule out the Premiership, and that obviously leads me on to perhaps the most obvious question of the moment. What about returning to Watford?
Well, I mean, I knew the chances are, Sybil, that you were going to ask this question. I think one's got to say that that club has always been close to my heart and always will be. So I've always watched the results, and at the present time, the results on the pitch are not what anybody at Watford, particularly Glenn Roeder, the manager, would want. And understandably, there'll be a lot of rumours, and with me being out of the game at the present time, those rumours will get stronger and stronger. I've always been taught to, sort of neither confirm or deny a rumour, because if you do neither of those things, sooner or later you'll find out who started them. So I think the best thing is, particularly from their point of view, is they've got enough problems at the present time trying to get themselves off the bottom of that table without me sort of either adding or saying anything about the situation, because so many people automatically assume. Now, this has been going on for so long, but I'm here talking to you.
Would you like to be helping out, though, at Vicarage Road?
I think you've always feel that you'd like to help out any former team or former club that you had close associations with, but that isn't the situation. I mean, I believe that what you might like and what you might hope for have to be put against what the reality is. And the reality, as I say, is that I'm sat here, when you've been saying to me, what are you doing? One of the things I'm doing, obviously, is I'm doing an interview with Sybil Roscoe and enjoying it. And I think that's what I'm enjoying at the moment. As I go back to what I said earlier, I really am enjoying the independence I've got for the first time in my working life. For the very first time, I'm not dependent upon 11 people every Saturday for my success. And it has made a very pleasant change, believe me, to know that if what I'm going to do today is down to me and me alone, it's so different from how I've had to earn my success over the last quarter of a century.
Just sticking with the Watford thing, the fans seem to be thinking that perhaps Glenn Roeder has another couple of games to prove himself and to get the team off the bottom. What would stop you if you were asked to take over there? Would anything stop you?
Oh, yes. I would have to give great consideration to a lot of things, because the expectancy of being able to say, well, 10 years ago, you see, it's not 1977 when a 32-year-old Graham Taylor, with all these ambitions and aims in front of him, it's not 1977 now. Neither is it 1987 when I left. And the whole situation is to expect, for instance, a Watford to do what it did 10 years ago, to go up and finish probably runners-up to what would be now Liverpool, Manchester United or Newcastle again, I think is expecting far too much. In fact, the reality of the situation would be that anything mid-table in what is now the first division, the old second division, anything above mid-table would really be a bonus for Watford. Now, I'm not too certain that people could understand or expect that. You know, you would go back and immediately people would think, well, here we are, off we go again. It's so different now.
They chant your name now, don't they?
Well, I don't know. That
a
I don't know.
decade on.
Yes, that I don't know. I mean, it is a part of the country, thank goodness, where people think, oh, Graham Taylor's not a bad fella. But to be fair, the public generally are very, very good. You know, when you meet the public, they're very, very good.
What about those years at Watford being very special? And, of course, you were close to Elton John, and some people say that you helped save Elton John's life.
I wasn't that close, you know. I don't want these rumours starting again. I know him well enough to be able to say those things, you know, Sybil. So,
that's a relief.
Yeah, just don't worry about that. And you know, Elton has maintained contact over the years. I mean, we've been in contact with one another and speak to one another. But going back to your original question about Watford at that time, when I look back, people see the rise of that football club from the lower divisions to into Europe and the story itself. I think what a lot of people missed, it wasn't just that, it was a broader canvas at Watford, and that's when I look back at it. As much as the success that we had on the field, I feel as proud that I think it gave great leads in those mid-70s and early 80s when, you know, the hooligan element was really at its peak. That here was a club that could show that if a community and a football club could get together, what exactly could be achieved off the field as well as on it. Now, the two go hand in hand, but if I have any pride about that particular decade, it was in fact that, as I say, a broader canvas of looking at how people can get together and believe in one another, how a football club can be the heartbeat of a town, which is exactly what it was. And to be part of it, having been part of that, and those people that were part, only they really understand what I'm talking about when they were actually part of it. And that includes all of the people at Watford. So there's understandably this feeling. Now, whether that could ever be recreated again, because time goes on, one doesn't really know. But it was wonderful at that time. And of course, I met Elton John in 77 and turned Watford down to start with. I couldn't understand why I, as a young, ambitious manager, should want to go to a 4th Division club with a rock star as the chairman, you know. But then I listened to him and what his ambitions were, and I thought, well, he's as stupid as I am. So we gave it a go, and it was a fantastic time.
What did you say to him, though, that brings out this phrase that you helped save his life?
Well, I think he's probably mentioned that once or twice, and I don't think I saved his life. I mean, I'm really sure I didn't. But there were one or two occasions, one in particular, where I felt that he was probably drinking a little bit too much. And he tells the story, so I don't mind repeating. I would never have said it. And he came round to my house once, and we were talking, and actually I filled a pint pot with brandy and said, look, before we talk, you better drink that. I said, because, you know, that's what you're doing anyhow. So we put it in front of him and said, well, that's what you're doing, Elton. Now, I don't think he tells the story. I don't think it saved us, because I think there were other things and what have you, and it's a different world. But I think for a period of time, Watford, not Graham Taylor, Watford were able to sort of keep and help Elton so far along the way, but eventually he had to help himself, and I'm pleased from everything I hear about that. It seems that he has, and he really is, you know, sort of following that yellow brick road even further.
Graham, let's turn to your recent departure from Wolves. Why did you decide to go?
I was asked to resign. I mean, it's no good beating about the bush. The point is this, that I was given a 3-year contract, and I think at the time that Jonathan Hayward, who is the chairman there and the son of Sir Jack, realised, I said to him at the time that, you know, there is a baggage that I will continue to carry as the ex-international manager. I chose not to leave this country, and I can't see why I should. I think I've every right to live here. I didn't want to go abroad. I had opportunities, and had opportunities just recently to go and get involved in football abroad. But I don't want to do. I will mention one. I did turn down the chance. I ought not really to mention them, I suppose, because there is a person now that's got that job. I'm hesitating really now, because I said I would mention it. It was to be a national coach in a Middle East situation, and I don't mean to be unkind, but I thought, well, I've had enough sort of things thrown at me. I don't think I ought to take that risk.
Whereabouts?
I was offered the post of Iran, to go to Iran, and I know, please, because it could be. And I thought, well, it's, you know, our people. I declined it. I think very politely. I think I declined it very politely. But I don't mean in any shape or form to be disrespectful. But that was straight. You don't do these things straight away. And I have had a chance to go out into the Caribbean, which seemed sort of very nice as well. But I don't want to go abroad. Now, I'm not saying that I never will, but I can't see why I should. And I like to live in this country. I like living in this country. I'm not talking about necessarily working in professional football, but I like living in England. I like the 4 seasons. I don't like to be in a place where, you know, it's cold all the time or it's hot all of the time. And there's beautiful spring days, and you get that in this country.
Would have been a challenge, though, to be the international manager of the football team for Iran.
One hell of a challenge, which I didn't obviously think I was up to. But we're on the Wolverhampton. Where have we gone? We've gone from Wolverhampton to
Iran.
To Iran.
Yeah. Getting back to Wolves. Was it partly media hostility and perhaps your family maybe having to face the same kind of thing all over again?
No. What it simply was results that did turn people. I mean, the situation is that when you're giving a 3-year contract, as I was given, when I was signed that contract, there was not a clause in that contract that said you must get Wolverhampton Wanderers into the Premiership in 1 year. You were given a 3-year contract to do it. After 18 months, Wolverhampton really chose to break that contract. Now, if one looks at the facts, the situation is in the first year, the one full season that I had at Wolverhampton, we got into the playoffs. We finished in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. And it isn't a defence, it's facts, these, that they had their best year on the football pitch since they were relegated in 1983. Now, those were the facts. But the expectancy there with the new Molineux Stadium is so intense, so strong, the money that's been put into the club, that when we started this season, with obviously a reaction to the disappointment of missing out on the playoffs, our results were not as good as they should have been, and nobody needs to tell me that. But on the other hand, you've got to work to change these things round. But there is always, in any passionate football club, a small minority of people who will not have that patience. And where I'm concerned, there is always that extra thing to be able to have a go at me. Now, once that group of people started to make their voices heard, fed in turn by the small minority of certain sections of the media, and they begin to feed one another, the ex-England manager is under pressure again. You then need people to stand with you or stand by you. If, as obviously that wasn't the case where Jonathan was concerned and the board of directors, it's best to resign. I've no intention of being in the game as long as I've been, of having the experience I've had, to fight on as I would have done without the support of your chairman and board of directors. Now, I have no axe to grind, because what has to be done then is you offered the contract, you've broken the contract, you compensate for the remaining part of the contract. If the club do that, which they have done, then okay, I've no axe to grind in that. Other than the disappointment of saying, well, hold on here, you had your best year yet last year. We're having a bit of a rough time here now. The 3-year contract was there. In effect, you may just have ended my club career now.
And that's why, Graham, don't you think at this moment, oh, to hell with it? You know, this is the kind of treatment I continue to get.
Well, you do think that now, but I think, to be fair to say, when you say continue, I've been a manager nearly 25 years, following on a playing career that was ended short by injury. And people have short memories, so they only look really at what's happening now. When I look at the 25 years, I've been very fortunate, you see, Sybil. I'm one of, I would think, very few people who actually achieved their ambition. I wanted to become the England manager. Now, everybody will say, oh, you didn't qualify, it was terrible. No, I achieved an ambition that very few people in their lives actually really do achieve. It didn't go well for me then because we didn't qualify for the World Cup. Now, coming out of that, as I say, people will look at Wolverhampton and say, yeah, but Wolverhampton, I don't see my part at Wolverhampton as a failure at all. I see establishing a club to get it back. And if Mark McGee comes in now and can take it that step further, all well and good.
And you'll take comfort for that?
Well, the point is that there are things behind the scenes at all football clubs that people are not aware of. They only see from 3 o'clock to 20 to 5. Wolverhampton Wanderers is a big club without its own training facilities. I spent a lot of hours, a lot of time working with the local council, in effect, and in the Wolverhampton itself, they now have established an area where, in fact, they will have their own training ground. Now, if Wolverhampton in the long term are going to get into the Premiership and compete with the big boys, you've got to have your own training facilities. So for the year or so that I was there, and Graham Turner before me, we were dotting all over the place to do the training. Now, that gives players a lot of excuses. They say, well, where are we training this morning?
Might be Lillishall.
Well, we eventually got back to RAF Cosford, would you believe, which was, well, I say would you believe because I know you come from the area, but I mean, in that sense, there was I had to go and establish a relationship there so that we could use their facilities. they're not ideal, but they're as good as you can get. So all of the work that's gone on behind the scenes that people aren't aware of, that supporters really in some respects don't care about, they just want to see their team win, you know. So 3 o'clock on a Saturday, what's the score at 20-5? It's a win. What a good manager we've got. It's a loss. What a lousy manager we've got. All of the other work as management behind the scenes, I've been doing for a quarter of a century now, and I played that part in Wolverhampton, and I very much hope that they get their training ground, because if they get into the Premiership and get a training ground with that hard core of support they have there, great people at Wolverhampton. You've always got a minority wherever you go, but great people, you know. They say the black country, and they are black and white. There's no shades of grey with them at all, but they're great people. And I really hope that they get into the Premiership. But I know that they've got to have those training facilities, top-class training facilities. And if there's a part that I played there, by all means didn't get them into the Premiership, but if I established a base for them, then fine. I know what I've done. I don't need other people to tell me.
Graham Taylor, that's the story so far, and we're going to hear more from Graham after the news and sport.
We went into the European Championships in 1992 with only 1 defeat in 21 games. But the problem for us became we didn't beat Denmark. We drew 0-0. And for the very first time, it was my first experience in charge of an international side in a competition. And there was almost, you were sort of a feeling that you were actually hemmed in. The players could see it as well. By goodness me, it had all gone wrong. It hadn't all gone wrong. Where I think it did go wrong was that in the second game we drew against France as well.
Some people, though, Graham, would say that it went wrong when you took Lineker off
against Sweden. Well, I was coming to the next point as I was going through the Championship. On reflection, you would look back and say, well, that was a mistake because you affected a nation's hero. But at the time I did that from purely football reasons. And if it had come off, if we had won, and it didn't, but if we had, the perception of myself would have been totally different.
Yeah, but you know...
But it didn't happen.
You know
so
the sort of feeling, though, don't you? You're, as a football fan,
Yeah.
you're watching the match, and you're thinking, 48 goals, Lineker, and you wanted to scream at the TV, what the hell are you doing, taking him off?
Well, I think what people do, I mean, people have their opinions, but I think people do forget that Gary wasn't playing very well. And you have to be very strong. And the game is going on. I can't sit there and say, now, if I take Gary Lineker off and we lose, are the public going to turn on me? Because all you're thinking about is how can I win this game? What is the best things I think I can do? Now, if I make those decisions and then afterwards people criticise me on purely football matters, fair enough. But when they start to criticise you on personality clashes and things like that...
Because people said it was spiteful.
Yes.
That
because
you took him off.
Yes, that's right. And I have to live with all of that. But I look at people and I question their intelligence, really, in terms of that. But that's how people are.
But, you know, all that followed after that, the turnip head, how much did that hurt you?
People, I don't think sometimes, Sybil, believe me, I wasn't even aware of it. All this business of reading newspapers, and when people say, well, you don't read them, say, oh, yes, you do. It's impossible to read every paper. So if somebody reads a paper... I don't
understand how you couldn't have seen that at the time. Did you...
I didn't see it at the time, no, because I don't...
Did you put your head in the sand?
Paper.
Did you sort of go into the bunker because you knew the heat was on?
Well, I can't... I mean, it's now, what are we talking, 4 years ago, aren't we? And you have to be very, very tough. You have to be mentally tough. And if you start to read every newspaper, then you do go underneath, because, one, you can't afford to be reading every newspaper. And in one respect, why are you reading every newspaper? It's somebody's opinion who probably messes about with the facts anyhow, so why get all that affected by it all?
What did your dad think, Graham? Because your dad was a sports journalist. I wondered how, how difficult was it for him?
Well, I think the thing is, and people sometimes they wince. I mean, there are certain things that the public don't get to hear about, they don't read about. So they don't read about my parents, who are now in their mid to late 70s, you know, a television crew knocking on the back door and them opening and them walking into their kitchen and saying, well, now what about your son? This was when we'd lost to the States 2-0. You carry a lot of that, Sybil. You have to get on with it. But as I was saying to you a little bit earlier, the public, you know, are totally different. The public perception of you is far different.
What's it like when
press.
you walk into a pub?
I think you find it's very good. I mean, I found no problems. I remember meeting once a Millwall fellow who followed England all to the European Championships, and I thought, oh my God, here we go. So I said, well, I owe you a pint then, because he said, yeah, and we had a wonderful time. It's like coming here today. You know, I've caught the train into London and to come to do the interview, and then caught a cab up. Now on the train, I was meeting and talking to people. Say, is it? And the public themselves want to talk to you, and so I say that. And I found the best thing is to talk to them, but their perception of you is different than probably the press perception of you, the image that the press give of you. When you meet members of the public, say, hold on a minute, this probably, you know, is not the kind of fella that we're led to believe he is.
Did the England experience scar you in any way, though, Graham?
Professional pride hurt me very much. I mean, I had an ambition to become the England manager and achieved it. I then have ended up with being the England manager when we didn't qualify for the World Cup. I can well understand, I don't agree, but why Don Revie did what he did. I can well understand how people feel, but the professional pride has been hurt very, very much, because that is the ultimate. But we're in a position now, Sybil, it's ridiculous, isn't it, where any people who are ambitious surely want to be the England manager. Now, there are people saying, no, I don't want it. I don't believe all of those people, but they are saying that for whatever reason. But on the other hand, what a position that we're in now, that people, good managers, are actually publicly saying, I don't want to be the manager of the international side.
Do you take any responsibility for that?
Well, I mean, because we didn't qualify, it
Or
gave
just
a
the way
perception.
the England manager is viewed and the way the...
Well, I don't know where I can take responsibility for. I think other people probably ought to take responsibility as to why people don't want the job now. But I think that in many respects, the whole thing is changing so much, Sybil, in terms of communications, in terms of coverage now. Everybody has an opinion now. There's phone-ins here, phone-ins there. Now, I don't mind everybody having an opinion, but for me, an opinion is worthless unless you either support it with facts, accurate facts, or you support it with experience. Now, that doesn't stop you having an opinion, but there's so many ways people can voice their opinion now and not be accountable for what they say.
In that case, what would you say to some of those managers, Kevin Keegan, Glenn Hoddle? What would you say to them if they are doubting taking on the job?
Well, I mean, first of all, my own opinion is that at the present time, there could be nobody better equipped to do it than Kevin. I mean, what Kevin Keegan has done, instead of leaving playing and just being a commentator and passing comments on management and what, and never actually experienced it, he's come out and he's done it. Now, I know at the time up there what they're trying to achieve. I mean, I watch with great interest in the North East what they're trying to achieve there. I'm convinced they're trying to achieve a sporting club, not a football club, a sporting club in the North East that will probably be the best or one of the best in Europe, not in England. So that's a great ambition and vision led by Sir John Hall, of which Kevin Keegan on the football side is playing a very important part. And it may be that he says, look, I don't want the England job because I want this vision. We have this vision and I want it to be achieved. On the other hand, your country needs you. Your country needs you. And he's a former England captain. He's played in Europe. He has a charisma about him. Kevin would be an ideal candidate. You'd have to ask him, why don't you want it? If that's what he's saying. I couldn't answer for him. It seems strange to me. But then I think other people have to ask themselves, why do people not want the England job? And the answer really is that you've got to be prepared. You're there to be shot at all of the time. And you'll be shot at both professionally and personally.
When I was saying to you, do you take any responsibility for degrading the England job? I'm thinking about the documentary.
And what I think there, for viewing figures, they actually advertised the programme on the F word. Now, they may think that that was good. I think they were wrong, because I think they had a first-class sporting documentary that was downgraded by themselves on their advertising of it.
Do you regret?
I regret being seen swearing in public, but I don't actually regret doing it. And I understand now your question about responsibility. The insight that people got into the job probably gives them some feeling of exactly what it is going. From my personal point of view, Sybil, this sort of grey man, sort of thick man who didn't know what he was doing and perhaps didn't care, suddenly the public say, hold on a minute, he's got the passion.
Graham, just finally to wrap up this afternoon, you've taken a lot of knocks. Do you still love football?
Oh, yes. Football, I mean, it's like everything else. Football is a game, and you must never remember that that's what it is, and that's your love of the actual game. People are people, and we have all aspects in football as you have in any walk of life. And by the very nature of events, when you become the England manager, you've reached the top of your profession. Just by the very nature of human nature, that creates jealousies, it creates envies. So that is human nature. You put that to one side when you ask me, do I still love football? Yeah, because nobody can stop you getting a ball and going out in your backyard and imagining whoever, whether you're 51, whether you're 11,
still do
12.
that?
I haven't done it for a bit, but I did, sort of mention that now and again. It's the whole, I say beauty of the game, but it's the whole feeling and enthusiasm and passion for it that it's something that's been in my life, all of my life, and I'm pretty certain will remain so. Whether I remain in the game or not is another matter.
So you must hate it being in exile again?
No, I don't. No, I don't, because I can still love the game of football without actually being in it.
Now, Graham, you do say that you enjoy the independence that being in exile gives you, but if I could wave a wand and say, Graham, you can have any job you like, what would it be?
Well, if I said the England manager and start again, providing I have the experience, providing you give me the experience that I've had, I'll take the England job again.
You would, if the FA came to you this afternoon and said, Graham, we want you back, you would go?
Yes, I would. Because, I know you say I've had an experience. You see, I've experienced things of competitions. I know the build-up into those kind of things now. And you have to learn from those kind of things.
Well, let me take...
It doesn't guarantee that you get the results, so you'd still get criticised again.
Let me take the wand away then and ask you...
You're a marvellous fairy.
Would you like to be the England manager again? Now, take away the wand, and I'm being serious now.
Yes.
Would you like to do the job again?
Yes, providing, because of the experience, I wouldn't like to do it again without having had the experience that I've had.
So do you see yourself as a contender then?
No. Oh, no, that's out. Because what happens, being an ex-England manager, particularly if you fail to qualify, is like being a dead politician.
You say you're not a contender, but you would still like the job as England manager.
No, don't.
Do you wish it would be different?
Don't put words into my mouth. No, what I'm saying earlier, Sybil, is that what we do have, we have sometimes what we wish and what we hope, and we have a reality. What I'm saying, I've experienced the international scene. There's nothing better than it. That's where you should be. Any man, woman, but any football manager with ambition should want to be the England manager. And he should not be frightened of saying so. Now, it may not work out for you, and it didn't work out for me, but if people say now to me, would you like to be the manager, only with the experience that you've had, but the reality is that that's a dead duck. It's a non-starter. So I can say it with a smile on my face, knowing that it's never going to happen.
Graham Taylor, thanks very much for being here on
Thanks
5 Live.
Thank you.
And that was Graham Taylor, of course, talking to me a little bit earlier on today.
Little with a chance to clear. Just taking his time, Craig Little. And he gives it away to Beardsley. Beardsley to Ferdinand. Chance for Newcastle. Ferdinand shot goes underneath Gary Walsh. And Newcastle have the lead at the Selnet Riverside Stadium. The ball should have been clear.